August 21st, 1911. It began like any other Monday morning in Paris. As the first rays of sunlight crept across the rooftops, street sweepers cleared yesterday's dust from the narrow roads. Cafe owners unlocked their doors. Fresh bread filled the air with its warm aroma, and horse-drawn carriages rattled across the cobblestone streets. To everyone living in the city, it was just another ordinary day. Across the River Seine stood the Louvre Museum, the pride of France and home to some of humanity's greatest artistic treasures. Every morning, before the first visitors arrived, museum employees quietly prepared the galleries for another day. Paintings were inspected, floors were cleaned, frames were dusted. Everything followed the same routine. No one suspected that history had already changed. Then, someone noticed an empty space on the wall. At first, nobody panicked. Staff assumed the painting had been removed for photography or restoration. Minutes passed. Questions became concern. Concern became confusion. Confusion became fear. The Mona Lisa had vanished. Within hours, France was in disbelief. The Louvre closed. Newspapers printed shocking headlines. Police searched for answers. How could the world's most famous painting disappear without anyone seeing a thing? The answer would astonish the world. The man responsible wasn't a master criminal. He was someone who walked through the museum almost every day, and nobody ever noticed him. To understand how one ordinary man carried out one of history's greatest art thefts, we have to go back to the beginning. The year was 1911. Europe stood at the height of what historians now call the Belle Époque, an era remembered for its optimism, elegance, and extraordinary cultural achievement. And no city represented that spirit more than Paris. Its grand boulevards bustled with life. Artists sketched in crowded cafes, writers debated ideas late into the night, musicians filled concert halls with new compositions, inventors dreamed of a future shaped by electricity, automobiles, and flight. To the world, Paris was more than a city. It was the capital of culture. Standing proudly along the banks of the River Seine was one of its greatest treasures, the Louvre Museum. Long before it became the world's most visited museum, the Louvre had served as a royal palace for French kings. Its halls contained centuries of human creativity. Ancient Egyptian sculptures, Greek masterpieces, Renaissance paintings, every room told the story of civilization itself. Among those countless works of art hung a modest portrait painted more than 400 years earlier by an Italian genius named Leonardo da Vinci. Compared to the enormous historical paintings surrounding it, the Mona Lisa wasn't especially large. It measured just 77 centimeters tall. Visitors often walked past it without stopping. It was admired by artists and scholars, but it had not yet become the global celebrity we know today. Few people could have imagined that within days this quiet little portrait would become the center of an international mystery. Because while visitors admired the treasures on display, someone else had been quietly studying something entirely different: the museum itself, its corridors, its routines, its weaknesses, and soon, those observations would change history forever. His name was Vincenzo Peruggia. If you had walked past him on the streets of Paris in 1911, you probably wouldn't have looked twice. He wasn't wealthy, he wasn't famous, he wasn't a career criminal. He was an Italian immigrant trying to build a life far from home. Born in Dumenza, Italy in 1881, Peruggia learned the trade of glasswork before moving to Paris in search of opportunity. He found work as a glazier, installing protective glass for valuable paintings. One of his company's contracts brought him inside the Louvre, including the gallery that housed the Mona Lisa. For weeks he walked through the museum carrying tools instead of suspicion. He learned employee entrances. He noticed quiet staircases. He watched guard routines. He discovered which doors were often left unlocked. Most importantly, he blended in. Museum workers wore simple white smocks. So did the contractors. To everyone around him, Vincenzo Peruggia looked exactly where he belonged. Years later, he claimed he acted out of patriotism, believing Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece belonged in Italy. Historians still debate whether patriotism, money, or both motivated him. Whatever his reason, he wasn't studying the painting anymore. He was studying an opportunity. And on the morning of August 21st, 1911, he was finally ready to act. On this day, the Louvre was closed to the public. Only cleaners, maintenance workers, and a handful of employees moved through its corridors. Vincenzo Peruggia knew this routine. He knew the guard shifts, the quiet staircases, the unlocked exits, and that a man in a white work smock attracted no attention. Before sunrise, he entered through the employees' entrance without being questioned. To everyone who saw him, he was simply another worker. Most historians believe Peruggia acted alone. He walked calmly to the Salon Carré where the Mona Lisa hung. He didn't rush. He couldn't afford to. Every movement had to appear ordinary. He listened. Footsteps echoed in distant corridors. Then, silence. The room was empty. For the first time in history, the Mona Lisa stood alone with the man who intended to steal her. Peruggia took one final look down the corridor. No guards, no visitors, no witnesses. The opportunity he had been waiting for had finally arrived. Vincenzo Peruggia stepped toward the Mona Lisa and carefully lifted it from the wall. Years working as a glazier had taught him exactly how the protective frame had been assembled. Carrying the painting to a nearby service staircase, he quietly removed the protective glass and heavy outer frame. What remained was a surprisingly small wooden panel. The masterpiece that kings had treasured could now be carried by a single man. Peruggia slipped the painting beneath his white work smock. For the first time in centuries, the Mona Lisa disappeared from sight. As he approached an exit, a door refused to open. For one tense moment, everything seemed lost. If a guard appeared, the plan would end. According to one widely accepted account, another museum employee unknowingly helped him open the stubborn door, believing he was simply another worker. Peruggia thanked him, walked calmly outside, crossed the courtyard, and disappeared into the streets of Paris. No alarm sounded. No one chased him. Hidden beneath an ordinary white smock was one of the greatest masterpieces ever created. The theft had taken only minutes. Its consequences would last forever. Outside the Louvre, Paris carried on as normal. Inside the museum, the missing painting went unnoticed for hours. Because the museum was closed that Monday, few people entered the Salon Carré. When employees finally noticed the empty space, they assumed the painting had been removed for photography or restoration. A call to the photography department brought an unexpected answer. "We don't have the painting." The restoration department didn't have it either, nor did storage. As staff checked records, confusion turned into panic. The Mona Lisa hadn't been moved. It had disappeared. The Louvre locked its doors. Police flooded the museum. Employees, contractors, and recent visitors became part of a growing investigation. Searches spread through galleries, staircases, basements, and workshops. Nothing. While detectives searched every corner of the museum, Vincenzo Peruggia sat quietly in his apartment. Hidden inside a simple wooden trunk lay the painting the entire world would soon be searching for. The investigation had begun, but no one was looking at the right man. News of the theft spread across Paris, then across Europe, and finally around the world. Newspapers printed special editions. The world wasn't only asking where the Mona Lisa had gone, it was asking how France had allowed it to happen. Police questioned museum workers, contractors, guards, collectors, and art dealers. Every promising lead ended in disappointment. Then, the investigation took an unexpected turn. The poet Guillaume Apollinaire was arrested because of his connection to an earlier theft from the Louvre. During questioning, another famous name surfaced: Pablo Picasso. For a brief moment, one of the 20th century's greatest artists found himself questioned in connection with the missing masterpiece. But investigators found no evidence linking either man to the crime. They were released. Meanwhile, only a few kilometers away, the Mona Lisa rested quietly inside Vincenzo Peruggia's apartment. The world's greatest manhunt was searching everywhere, except the one place that mattered. For weeks, investigators chased every possible lead. Then, the weeks became months, and the months slowly turned into years. Paris returned to normal. The crowds outside the Louvre disappeared. Newspaper headlines grew smaller until, eventually, they stopped altogether. To the public, the mystery had become an unsolved legend. But inside a modest apartment, only a few kilometers from the museum, the world's most famous painting never moved. Hidden inside an ordinary wooden trunk, the Mona Lisa waited in complete silence. Every morning, Vincenzo Peruggia woke up, made his coffee, and went about his day like any other working man. He repaired glass. He greeted his neighbors. He walked the streets of Paris unnoticed. No one suspected that the greatest art theft in modern history was sitting beneath his bed. As time passed, his confidence quietly grew. The police had questioned hundreds of people: museum guards, employees, collectors, art dealers, even some of the most famous names in the art world. Yet somehow, they had overlooked the one man who had simply walked out of the Louvre with the painting hidden beneath his workman's coat. The investigation had reached a dead end. France believed the Mona Lisa had vanished forever, but Vincenzo knew exactly where she was. Every single day, he lived beside the painting the entire world was searching for. Then, after more than 2 years of waiting, he made a decision that would change everything. By late 1913, Vincenzo believed the moment had finally arrived. He no longer saw himself as a thief. In his mind, he was an Italian patriot, preparing to return Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece to its homeland. Instead of approaching the authorities, he made a different choice. He wrote a letter to a respected art dealer in Florence named Alfredo Gari. Signing only as Leonardo, he claimed he possessed the missing Mona Lisa and wished to return it to Italy. When the letter arrived, Gari was skeptical. Extraordinary claims were nothing new. Collectors, museums, and dealers regularly received letters from people insisting they owned priceless works of art. Almost all of them were frauds. Yet this letter felt unusually convincing. Rather than dismiss it, Gari agreed to a meeting. A few days later, Vincenzo packed his belongings, closed the wooden trunk, and boarded a train bound for Florence. Inside that ordinary trunk rested the most famous missing painting on Earth. No guards, no escorts. No one realized what was traveling beside them. After arriving in Florence, Vincenzo checked into the Hotel Tripoli Italia and sent word to Alfredo Gari. The meeting was arranged for the following morning. When Gari arrived, Vincenzo quietly unlocked the trunk. As the lid slowly lifted, both men stood in silence. There it was, the missing Mona Lisa. To be certain, Gari immediately contacted Giovanni Poggi, director of Florence's Uffizi Gallery. Together, they carefully examined the painting. Every brushstroke, every layer of varnish, every detail matched Leonardo da Vinci's original masterpiece. There was no longer any doubt. After more than 2 years, the Mona Lisa had finally been found. Keeping his composure, Gari thanked Vincenzo and suggested they complete the arrangements the following day. Satisfied, Vincenzo returned to his hotel room. He believed his mission had finally succeeded. He had no idea that the Italian police were already on their way. Morning arrived at the Hotel Tripoli Italia. Vincenzo Peruggia woke believing he had finally completed his mission. He expected to meet Alfredo Gari once more, collect his payment, and become the man who returned Leonardo da Vinci's masterpiece to Italy. Instead, there was a knock at the door. When Vincenzo opened it, Italian police officers were waiting. He offered no resistance. The Mona Lisa was recovered safely. News of its discovery spread across Europe within hours. Before returning to France, the painting was displayed in Florence, Rome, and Milan, where thousands queued simply to catch a glimpse of the masterpiece that had disappeared for more than 2 years. Across Italy, many people celebrated Vincenzo as a patriot who had brought Leonardo's work home. French authorities saw something very different. They saw a thief. After the painting was returned to the Louvre, Vincenzo stood trial. He insisted he had acted out of love for Italy, believing Napoleon had stolen the Mona Lisa from his homeland. But history revealed a different truth. Leonardo da Vinci had brought the painting to France himself, where it was legally acquired by King Francis I centuries before Napoleon was even born. Vincenzo's patriotic mission had been built on a misunderstanding, yet his theft transformed the Mona Lisa forever. Before 1911, it was admired mainly by artists and scholars. After the theft, it became the most famous painting in the world. More than a century later, millions still stand before its glass case inside the Louvre. Not only because of Leonardo's genius, but because one ordinary museum worker once walked out the front door carrying history beneath his coat and changed the story of art forever. If you enjoyed uncovering this story with us, subscribe to Vestron Media for more forgotten history, extraordinary true crime, and the mysteries that shaped our world. If this documentary sparked your curiosity, a like and a share help us continue bringing these remarkable stories to life. Until the next story,